Okay, this video is going to focus on 2D arrays. We're going to do a bit of a recap on 1D arrays, how they're used, the benefits of them, and then we'll introduce 2D arrays and do some basic, just one practice question and look at the OCR reference language. It's the second time I've done the video because I'm a donkey. I did 20-minute recording. Then I realized I hadn't shared my screen. So second time lucky, see how it goes. Okay, so we're going to get started straight away and think about, well, what's an array? What's the purpose of it? So let's say that I had a number of tests or exams and I wanted to keep my scores. Simple way we could do it, we could have a variable for each one. So we could have score 1, got 34, score 2, we got 45 and 54, sorry, score 3 is 98 or something like that, which is fine. Each variable stores that data. That's absolutely fine. However, it's not the most elegant or efficient way of doing it, especially if we want to store multiple scores. So instead, I'm going to create an array and call it scores. And then we're just going to put them in like that. So score. Now, first thing to remember is arrays are a fixed length. Okay, so in this case, this array has 3 elements to it. Okay, and there's only one data type when it comes to arrays. In Python, they're kind of classed as what's called lists. The main difference is lists can use multiple different data types, and they're dynamic. They can change. Okay, so in the context of what we're doing now, in what I'm doing here, these scores aren't going to change. There's not going to be more. It's not going to be less. Well, at least when the program's running. Okay, so what I can do here is quite simply, I could print out all of my scores together like that. Let's just run that. Call it 2D part 2. And you can see there it displays my 3 scores like that. Okay. If you remember, each individual item in our array has an index. So whilst we're on this, if you make a prediction what's going to happen, you should see, there we go, 54 is displayed because arrays are 0 indexed. So that's scores 0, scores 1, scores 2. Okay, let's say I wanted to work out my total score. One way of doing it, which is absolutely fine, I could do this. Total score is scores 0 plus scores 1 plus scores 2. Okay, let's just print total score. So let's run that. And it should, there you go, 186. It adds it up all together. Sorry, this is quite small. I do apologize. This is an IDE called Thonny. Okay, very similar to other ones, but you can see here the assistant. It does a bit of debugging as well to help you. It's just down here where we can see our program running. Okay, so that's total scores, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The issue comes, let's say I did sit 2 extra exams. There we go. When I run this program now, we're going to get a logic error. Okay, we've got the same answer. It's not adding on those 2 final scores. And what I should do, I'll have to go back and amend my code here so it adds more on, which gets a bit faffy. So what we should really be doing is using a loop, okay, to loop through the array to add the scores up. Okay, so let's show you how I do that. So let's set total scores to 0. So essentially what I need to do is to look at each item and then add it to our total score. So let's have a loop. So for I in range, well, we know how many things are in our array, which is going to be 5. Okay. Total score is total score plus scores I. So if you remember with our for loop, the I is a little variable and just keeps track of the loop. Okay, so it starts from 0, adds 1 each time. So that's these scores 0, adds it to there, goes up by 1, scores 1, and adds it to it each time. So then we can print total score. Bear in mind that print is outside of the loop, so it's only going to display it once it's added all of them up. Okay, let's just run it. So there you go, it's added up all of them, 298. Okay, so that is a lot more efficient. So the good thing about having a loop is, let's say I had even more exams, okay, or my GCSEs or whatever. And then what I can do then is, rather than just knowing the length of the, I know before it was 5 tests, I can just set this as the length of the array. There we go. So that way, each time I run it, there we go, 467. Let's go back down to our 5 tests. Okay. There we go. Let's run it again. 298. Okay. And the good thing about that is, what we can also do is we could calculate the average. So average is going to be our total score divided by, we could just simply the length of the array, scores. And then let's print average. If that works. Yeah, 59.6. That was my average. Excuse me. Okay, so that's a recap of just using a one-dimensional array and how we can loop through to actually, well, do some calculations. It's, and how it's just a more elegant way of doing our coding. Right, let's go back down to 2 scores. Actually, no, let's do 5. Okay, makes it a bit easier. Okay, 90. But let's imagine it wasn't just me that did the test. There was a number of people which did the test. So this is where what we could do. We could have, I don't know, Dave scores, and then we could have, our next person could be Harry scores, and we could put them in there. We could potentially have all of our data, or our students essentially, in each of their own arrays. But then it becomes difficult if we want to kind of compare totals and averages, that sort of thing. And essentially, there's the same amount of tests, it's the same data, so it would make sense to store it in one data structure. So what we're going to do now is we're going to keep scores, but we're going to have a 2D array. So to do that, what we do is we put an array within an array. So there's our first score, which was mine, and we just separate each one by a comma. Just going to reduce it down to 4, just so we've got space for it. Actually, no, let's keep 5, because I'll show you a different way of doing it. So 1, 2. We'll have to, I'd say, yeah, we'll do 3 students. That's it. 11. This one's going to be rubbish. 10, 8, 2, and skip the last one. Okay. So there we go. So let's have a go and print scores 1. Okay, you should have a prediction. What do you think is going to be displayed? And as you can see, it's going to print 33, 78, 12, 34, 12, which is our second item in there, second person, because remember, there's 0 indexed. So scores 0 is this first item in the kind of the outer list, the outer array, sorry, which is all of that. Okay. Scores 1 is all of that, and scores 2 would be all of that. Now, what I like to do when I do my coding, I like to kind of arrange 2D arrays, so it's easier to kind of get my head around it. So I'm just going to put that to the next line, that one there, and that one there. Let's just move that down. Okay, so that makes it a bit easier. So let's add a couple of comments on here. Oh, I can't tab there, never mind. We'll go away. So that is essentially scores 0, that's scores 1, and that is scores 2. Okay, so we can see that when I run scores 1, it does that one there. Right, let's see, I wanted to print out that person, that score there. So that's going to be, actually, let's go for 12. Okay, so that's going to be scores 1, 4. Because think about each one's individually indexed. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's run that. 12. Let's get that number 2 there. So that's going to be scores 2 and 3, 2, 3. You think about it, if you're going to the cinema and you're choosing your seat, you've got your row and your column. So essentially, this first number is your row number, 0, 1, 2. And this second number is the column number, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Right. So if you remember, we can loop through any array to do some calculations. So let's have a go at working out everybody's top score. Oh, no, not top score, sorry. Well, let's add up all their scores first of all, okay? So what I need to do is I need to loop through for each row. So I'm going to say for row in range, okay? And we know there's 3 rows, okay? So we need to do it 3 times. So for each time, for each row, what do I need to do? Well, I need to set the total to 0, okay? And then I need to loop through each column. So for column in range, and that's going to be 5 because there's 5 columns. Our total is going to be our total plus scores. And if you remember, it was row, column. Okay. So what it's going to do, if you think about it, this row starts off as 0. Okay, so it's going to be looking at this row here. Okay, the total set to 0. For column in range, so for each column, the total is going to be the total plus scores rows. That'll be 0, column 0. So it's going to take the 34 and then add it to the total. And then column goes up by 1. So it's going to be row 0, column 1, 54. It's going to add it. Okay. And then row stays as 0, column goes up by 1, 98. That gets added to total, 56, and then 90. Okay. And what we can do then, we could then print total. Okay. So if you kind of ignore this, think about it for each row, set the total to 0, and then take each item, each number for each column and add it to the total, then display it, and then do it each time for each set of scores. Let's just run it. And, ooh, where's that 2 come from? Oh, yeah, because I've got that print scores. Let's sack that off to save confusion. Okay, let's run it again. So there we go. 332. 332? That ain't right. Is it? Oh, no, it is. So I just can't do any maths in my head. Yeah, 90, 98, 56, 54. Yeah, of course it is. Weird. Anyway, yeah. So 332, 169, 31. Okay, it adds them all up. And once again, we can actually work out our average. So average is going to be our total divided by 5. Yes, because there's 5 tests. And we can print average. Okay, see if that works. Yep, that sounds about right. So the first person had totals of 332. Okay, 66.4 average, 169, 33.8, 31, 6.2. Okay, so we can see here is the key thing you want to take away from this is the indexing in arrays, in 2D arrays, sorry, are row then column. Think about it like that. And the fact you can loop through. Right, let's go on to here and have a look at a typical exam question. This one's from November 2021. OCR Blocks is a game played on a 5x5 grid. Players take it in turns to place blocks on the board. The board is stored as a 2-dimensional array with the identifier game grid. Okay. This shows that players A and B have placed 3 blocks so far. So we have our rows down here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and our columns 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, we can move on to subprograms now. The function check block checks whether a square on the board has been filled. When check block 4, 2 So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, row and column 1, 2 is called. The value A is returned. Okay. So basically, the function, imagine you're looking at that, you're just going to see. So, for example, if I said check block 0, 3, that's going to show. That should say return B. If I was to say check block 1, 1, that should return 3. Here is the subprogram. So this uses OCR reference language. So this wouldn't, obviously in Python you write def check block and stuff like that. So function check block RC. Remember, these are the parameters. R stands for row, C stands for column, obviously. If game grid RC is equal to A, so it's checking if it is equals to A, or if it's equal to B, then the outcome is whatever is in that box. So it was going to say it's going to take, so for example, if it's that one, it's going to take A and assign it to the variable outcome. If neither A or B are in there, then the word free is assigned to the variable outcome. And at the end, it returns the variable outcome. So it's either returning free or A or B. Okay, right. So write an algorithm to allow player A to select a position for their block on the game board. Okay, so the algorithm will allow player A to choose their position. If it's free, it's going to assign A to it. Otherwise, it's going to say it's taken. It's going to say A or B. Okay, and it keeps on repeating until it finds a free one, essentially. So this is worth, I think, 6 marks. Or was it 8 marks? I can't remember. We'll look in a second. So the algorithm must ask the player for the position of their block on the board. So think about it. A position requires 2 bits of data. It requires a row and a column. We'll come back to that. Use the check block function to check if this position is free. So this requires your knowledge of using a function correctly. If the position is free, add the letter A to the position chosen in the game grid array. If the position is not free, repeat the above steps until a free position is chosen. Okay. So in the past, when I used to do this, I used to always go straight in. Let's just hide the ribbon. Okay. Oh, no, let's not hide the ribbon. That wasn't a clever thing. No, cancel that. What have I done here? Oh, that's it. Show ribbon. That's it. Let's insert a text box. Okay. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. Always show ribbon. That's better. Right. Anyway, as I was saying, what I used to do is to go straight in and start off with that first bullet point. Ask the player for the position for their block. So I could start off to say, right, row equals input, enter, row. Okay. And then column equals input, enter, column. Okay, that's what I used to do, is go straight in and kind of essentially guarantee those marks, because we get marks for making sure we have correct variables and inputs. However, I've learned to kind of read the question very, very carefully. And the first thing you need to see is there any iteration? Is there any looping? Yes, there is, because it says repeat the above steps until a free position is chosen. Now you'll have a question like this. I'm pretty sure they've on some sort of question where it says repeat until something happens. Now, if you see that, what I do straight away is, right, okay, I want to repeat something. So I'll just create a variable, call it whatever you want. Let's call it loop, and set it to true. Okay. And this is like a little switch essentially, which is telling it to kind of keep on repeating until we switch it off. Okay. At the moment, the switch is on. So I'm going to have a while loop is equal to true. Okay. Brilliant. And now I can go through the rest. So let's just put this. Oops. I'm not with it today. There we go. Let's go up. That's the one. No, it's not. That's it. Right. So now we've got our loop. So we're going to set the loop to true. Okay. And now we're going to start our loop. So we're going to allow the person to position their block on the board. I've done that. Row is equal to input, column because input requires 2 bits of data. Next bit, use the check block function to check to see if this position is free. So essentially, what we want to check in to see is if, when we call the function, it returns free. Okay. Oops, gone the wrong way. So we do this. If check block. Now, when this is us calling the function, remember we would call a function, it's got 2 parameters. It's got 2 parameters, which is R and C. So what it's saying there is, well, what have you chosen for your R and C, your row and column? Well, it's whatever we typed in, and that is row, column. Okay. So this is me calling the function. Okay. If check block, row, column, what are we checking to see? If free is returned, right, is equal to free. Okay. Oops. So it's saying when we call the function, we're going to take these numbers, pass those into the function. It then jumps to the function. It then checks to see if the row and column has gone in. If it returns free, okay, what does it say? Add the letter A to the position chosen in the game grid array. Well, if it comes back as free, then we need to add A to that position. So game grid, okay, row, column is now going to be A. If the position is free, we've done that. Add the letter A to position. Okay, brilliant. So I've done the first 3 bullet points. If the position is not free, repeat the above steps until a free position is chosen. Right. Well, at the moment, this is going to continually loop because loop is set to true. Okay. And while the loop is set to true, keep on doing this. So what I need to do, I need to stop the loop from happening. I'll set the loop to false, but that's only going to happen once I've assigned A to that position on the game grid. So now I can quite simply do loop is equals false. Okay. And that is essentially the whole algorithm. Now, if it was, if this was OCR reference languaged, you would also have a cheeky little end if in there and an end while. Okay. When you do your answers, you can use Python, you can use OCR reference language. They're not going to penalize you for small little changes in syntax, essentially. Okay. There's quite a lot going on there. You can see we've got selection. Okay, we've got calling of functions, calling of subprograms. We've got iteration. Okay, and we've got use of a 2D array. So this is actually classed as a high difficulty question. So if I show you, if I can find it, the actual mark scheme, read my email. Okay, so if we go through, you can see here this is a 6 marks. It's a high value question. Marks are awarded like this. So 1 mark for input 2 position values separately. So if we go back to my answer, that's not the right thing. Where have I written that? Oh, done a different version of, where have I put it? Oh no, it's on there, idiot. So there you go. There's my first 2 marks. Okay. So row and column. Okay. Calls the check block function. So just by writing check block, just by putting that and followed by your 2 parentheses, you get a mark with input parameters. There we go. There's my second mark. Returned value used in selection. Well, that's a if that is equal to free. Okay, got that. If free stores A to the correct index of game array. So there we go. A is assigned to game grid row column. Loops until free position is chosen. Well, that's all of that. Loop equals true, while loop equals true, and then they're assigning loop to false. Okay, so 6 possible marks there. Okay, here is a typical example, which I think is pretty much the same as mine. Yeah. You can see here, if flowchart structured in English, That tells you this is from section A of the paper. Section B's got to be in reference language or in Python. Okay, right then. I hope that's been useful, not too confusing. Okay, any questions, please give me a shout. Yeah, thank you very much.